Saturday, June 25th. Welcome to the weekly chart review. Diving into Forex, here we go. Very interesting week as far as moves are concerned, right? As far as, if we start at the top with Aud Cad, my overall prediction was that it would climb, let's zoom out a little bit, about, almost 300 pips. Now, it only went up about 144 from entry, right? So it kind of peaked right there, 143.8, pretty close. All right. Not to say that this move is over. It's just unfortunate because it didn't climb, didn't make the entire move right away. It's having a little bit of a lull. But here's one thing to consider, right? Since we're on the 4-hour time frame, it hasn't broken through its previous low, right? It's kind of bounced off that aqua line before, but not coming back down to it. So whether that trade was entered, there's definitely no reason why there should have been a loss here, especially after being 140 pips in profit. Worst case scenario on this trade, it would have been a break even. Okay. There's still a very strong possibility that this is going to climb up. So I'm still going to leave the trade as it is. And I'm just going to set a buy stop actually, so that once it triggers the entry right here, it'll just continue to climb. Nothing is showing me right in this currency pair setup that it wants to drop lower, right? We did a deeper retracement off of Fibonacci both ways, right? So if we take this and draw it from the high to the low on the shorter time frame, you see that it really came up very high. And if we do, if we do the same from the bottom to the top, from here to here, see something similar. The only difference is it didn't even break through the 886. It kind of stopped at the 786, and now it's kind of hovering in between those zones. So I would say that once it crosses the area of entry, it's going to set up for a nice trade. But, if it does go lower, then it goes lower, right? I'm setting it for that line right there for a buy stop at 0.899. And yeah, 40 pip stop loss already. The initial pullback doesn't make me want to risk a whole lot. Maybe I'll go half the size I would normally take, but I would still say that's a very valid trade. Aud Chf. Now this is almost cleared, right? Very nice move right there. This is the only unfortunate thing with this trade pair, right? So as you see that it would have triggered entry right there, right? Or like I said, once EMA shift, right? So EMAs did shift right at this candle, right? So entry would have been taken maybe at the bottom of this one with 30. What did I set this stop loss to, just to double check? 36, 37 pips almost, right? So if we entered right there at the bottom of the candle and we set at 36 pips, unfortunately that wick would have knocked out of the trade. So again, extremely unfortunate with this sort of situation, because this was a very beautiful trade to jump in on, right? This is where it actually happened. Okay, this is where the trade was valid. Where can I draw it up? All right, well, let's see. If that's drawn up, that's totally in profit. But it wasn't that candle itself. Let's switch to the 1 hour just so we can make sure it is the correct spot. Yeah, so it would have been on the 4 hour. Oh, it would have been very close, actually. So if we grab it right there, yeah, that should be more than fine. So it wasn't quite off that line. It was a little bit higher where we got that big EMA shift, right? Here's one situation that you would need to be very cognizant of, okay? As this pair started to drop, right, what it did is it formed an imbalance on that switch, right? So it looks like it was coming close, and the switch was kind of inevitable because we saw multiple times on the 4-hour did not want to break this area here. So if I draw a horizontal line, be able to see that a little bit more clearly, right? It did not want to break that area. So once we got that giant red candle and then jumped in on an entry, right? So yeah, there we go. Jumped in on an entry, and just to be certain, yeah, 37.6 pips. So that would need to be, in this situation, when it's a very large candle like that, my stop loss is the entirety of the candle plus a little bit extra. Okay, I never risk it only coming up halfway because, as you see, this sort of thing happens. Now, it's unfortunate, right? Because if the entire trade setup the way that it was would have happened, then yeah, stop loss would have hit. But as I said last week, you know, it was based on an EMA shift essentially, and that would have been all fine and dandy. But that EMA shift formed an imbalance. So as previous lessons dictate, right, what I say I do at this point is I take a GAN box on that imbalance, and as you see, that 50%, right? So best entry would have been right there. Whoops, sorry, let me redo that. Best entry would have been here, right there, okay? That's what I would have been looking for. So then you see how entry would have been sniped right there. Okay, imbalance formed, that 50% is entry, give it enough breathing room to jump in on the entry, and look, 34.8, so 35 pip stop loss, right? Didn't even come close to triggering that area, but more than enough breathing room. And as you saw the rejections that were happening here on the 4-hour, that would have been a very solid indicator for it to kind of bounce up higher. Okay, and now remember, this trade occurred beginning of June. Okay, so this setup was already done June 7th, June 8th. So the trade would have been entered on June 10th, right? Strong potential to see what's going on in this wick right here. So let's jump in on a replay and see what's happening here on a smaller time frame. All right, to see if there was any other potential entries. Now check this guy out, right? We have another imbalance, but that imbalance was completely closed. Right, so let's take, for example, we'll remove that and take a look at entry. We'll just kind of eyeball it. We'll do 50% there, and right at the top of the candle, and plus a couple pips. Right, so let's see how much that would be. Just zoom that out because I drew way too large. Holy. Okay, we'll just jump on the 4-hour time frame from there. We were drew on the 1. 18.8. So we have lots of breathing room right now to make that a little bit larger, right? Easily make it 25. So without a doubt, that would have been a very good play to snag as well. All right, so this trade would have been done on June 10th, which was 2 weeks ago, almost exactly. So that would have been entry on the Friday. So yeah, I mean, overall, this has worked out very nicely. Just yeah, the only unfortunate thing is that it happened off an imbalance on the 4-hour rather than off an EMA switch, right? So like I said, I was predicting off the purple line to take an entry, and it would have been all great, but it was too squiggly at that point, right? So while the entry was still very good, I would say, especially guessing, you know, before the setup even occurred, right? But making sure that you watch for these imbalances and always do a 50% on that, enter off the 50, and again, if it doesn't hit the 50, then entry wasn't really hit and there's nothing to worry about, right? But that was a beautiful setup to take a trade deeper, and as you see, I mean, it definitely finished it off, and that is, you know, a potential 8.5 to 1, 9 to 1 almost, right? Depending on when entry was taken. So 15th, right? That would have been about 2 weeks ago. That setup would have been ripe for taking about 2 weeks ago, right? After the June 11th chart review. This would have been a nice snag off the 1-hour. But one way or another, that is already 2 weeks gone by. The only thing I can see what's going to be happening here is we're going to have a very deep pullback, specifically because of this huge candle. All right, so if I'm taking a look right there. That would be a next area of entry, right? So if we take that to that, this is what I'm looking at next time around. Okay. Yeah, so 73, I mean, that's quite deep, but you need to understand this is a very large imbalance. Okay, so maybe within that, if we switch it over to the 1 hour, are we going to be able to snag something tighter? Not really. I mean, now it's showing that it is very, very large, right? So maybe even something like this, which is still quite big, right? I mean, we're not going to be taking an entry that is going to be 75 pip stop loss, right? 60 would be the max. So if that's something that's worth risking on your end, by all means, right? But that's too large for me to feel comfortable with. But anyway, I'm not gonna mark it up because that's a trade I'm not going to take. But we'll see how it moves along. All right, Aud Jpy. So yeah, initial move right here, great climb, like that was fantastic. A 12.5 to 1 ratio on that win. The second climb that I was expecting, it's kind of stagnating actually. But as I see right here, lots of support off of this line, so I'm going to invalidate this trade. And I see a better potential setup right now off of here. Right, it's because it's been bouncing off this line several times. It's very likely it's going to happen again, and then very good potential to take it much higher. JPY will be weak in the long term, as you see with every currency pair. That could be a pretty good setup, but for this one, I'd be more comfortable with a deeper stop loss of 60 pips. Right, this is going to take a while for it to follow through. So yeah, that's what I see on Aud Jpy. Aud NZD, not a huge fan of taking trades on this currency pair, so I'll move on. Aud USD, so again, just a little bit of miss out right here on that move, but as you see right now, it kind of came back but didn't go as low, so I'll get rid of this trade idea. It is now done, and we kind of had another possible option happen for us. So let's take a look at the 4 hour right here on Aud USD. Okay, and what I can see right here is a very strong doji candle right there. I mean, if the wick was much smaller, I would call that a morning star, but it's a giant wick and almost no body to that candle on a 4 hour time frame. So that is a doji. Very doji, and yeah, pardon my puns. So what I can see on the long term, let's take a look. Right, so right here, this is where we had a bounce off already, kind of played off that wick in that area, so probably a smaller time frame there. So we're not going to worry about that. That trade idea or that area is finished. We're going to redo our fib and grab it from here to that bottom, and we'll see where potential pullback is. So you see right away it came up to the 50% and rejected, but it did not make a new low, so a very strong chance it's going to keep climbing. And this is what I can see already. This is going to be the spot for entry, right? We see these two beautiful candle pattern setups, right? Good potential bounce off, and it's exactly sitting at that 618, right? So strong potential trade idea for here. Stop loss. I mean, this could be a serious snipe of 20 pips, right? And then right back down, going lower, right? So it's a very good potential 13 to 1 trade. But yeah, we'll have to wait until it kind of comes back to that area, shuffles around a little bit, and then waiting potentially on an EMA switch on the 1 hour, right? Unless a very strong candle pattern kind of emerges. But right now I'm going to play it off the 4. And once it gets into that zone, I'll check the 1 hours, maybe even the 30 minutes, just to see what forms and what is a potential trade to be able to take, right? So once this pullback occurs, and the thing is, it's kind of right in line with the Nasdaq as well, because every time the USD is strong, stocks tend to tumble, right? So right now, the American dollar is going to be a little weak short term. So we have a very good chance for it to climb up here and then reject, right? It would kind of fall in line with what we're going to be missing on Nasdaq. And again, on the Nasdaq, I'll just go over on the stock video that I do a little later. All right, Bitcoin. What do we see here? Okay, so I had a small win on Bitcoin earlier on last week, which was kind of nice. I grabbed it around this area down here, and then I just rode it up a little bit. So once it hit a peak, I had my stop loss set. I was trailing it a little bit, so right there, kind of broke through and done. Right, so small win. I think it was something like 1,500 pips that I snagged, or I guess $1,500 for Bitcoin. That would be that would make more sense. I think it was somewhere around here, 1,500. Yeah, so that was pretty much my trade, right? Nothing huge, but still a decent win for a short-term trade. I think it only lasted a few hours, right? A few hours, I mean, probably a day. Because like I said, I took it around this area as this candle was climbing on a smaller time frame. And yeah, right when I saw that EMA shift, right, grabbed it off this guy right here, had a bit of a climb, and then as it dropped, where was it? I think it was when it dropped down the first time. That's when I exited. So I got out kind of middle of this candle, right? So it made a little bit of a run, and it's kind of hovering around that same zone. Just a short-term thing. I'm not really huge on trading cryptocurrency, especially with the volatility that's been having recently. But it is kind of poised to start climbing. Like we see, it's not really rejecting off that white EMA on the 1 hour, and on the 4 hour, that's the pink, right? So it caught up nicely to it, and it's chilling out right there right now. So as far as being able to take a trade on here that's confident, it's kind of already in one. Like this candle pattern right here, it was the perfect setup, right? So right after this would have been the strong entry for a long-term trade, right? That's what I'd be looking for, because now we have a bullish engulfing candle, and it is larger than the bearish right before it, right? Unlike this pattern right here. I mean, this is a pretty decent setup, these two. But it's much better when the next candle is larger than the previous, right? To kind of confirm that climb. One way or another, though, I mean, if the trade was taken here, it just needs to be, need to keep in mind that, you have the potential of running all the way down to your lows, right? So, I mean, you could drop $3,000, and that's a little tight, right? Especially when EMAs shift. But as they shifted, I mean, worst case scenario would have been maybe a stop loss set down to 1,000, but right now it's only sitting at like 900 in profit. So I mean, that's not even a 1-to-1 ratio yet, right? I'm not expecting Bitcoin to go up much higher. It's possible that we'll just do a solid Fibonacci retracement before dropping lower. Bitcoin is known to do that almost to the T, right? So it's a very good possibility that this is going to be the zone, right? As you can see, this is where the white EMA is on the 4 hour. Very strong chance it's going to, come close and reject it, similar to how these two hills have made it up there, right? So guess we'll see. And yeah, we definitely had convergence on that, so it's showing that it was going to be going down. Okay, all right, so moving on, Cad Chf. Yeah, see, this is a little bit of a bummer. This is when I was expecting it to pull up slightly more before dropping, but it dropped real hard, real fast. This is already the week gone, right? So this trade is done. It's invalid. No entry was taken. But what we can analyze right now is a couple potential things. So originally I would be looking at this candle pattern for a push upwards, but as we see, that's already been broken through. So this is the next potential setup, right? And as far as Cad CHF is concerned, CHF had a very strong short-term run, but Cad is going to be stronger in the long term, right? So if we're going to be looking for an entry, this would be the way to go, right? You know how I love these candle patterns. It's not exactly at the EMA shift because we're not looking at a continuation. We're looking for a pullback before we move forward, right? And as you can see on the daily, we just had the shorter lines kind of do a tumble down, but we are still, you know, the longer EMAs are still kind of going sideways actually. So there's really not any definitive price action right now. But if we take a look, you know, from there to there, we see overall the white, yellow, you know, that fib channel is pointing down. So best entry to be able to take would be from the top going down. But right now, short term, this is what I see, right? So jumping in on the 4 hour, something like this, where we set our trade right on that 50%, tighten this guy up. You know what? Yeah, tight is better at this point in time, like 30 pips, no problem. And then I would say middle of this imbalance, right? Because there's a lot of imbalances that formed for CHF. Not entirely sure if it's just going to close that imbalance and keep going up, or it will reject off it, right? We'll see at that point in time. But I have a feeling the first thing that it'll do is kind of hit it and reject it, and then, you know, consolidate a little bit and go back up. So this is kind of what I see as to every imbalance that CHF made. We might have something like this, you know, slowly kind of comes up, close that down, and then a little bit of this, and then finally up, right? So it's going to be pretty messy. I'd rather just get out of the trade and then wait for a nice candle pattern set up to go further up, right? So for now, I mean, even a little bit lower, sure. So 260. Let's say 260. So that's still a 9.17 to 1 risk to reward ratio. Good looking short-term trade. I would say that this would only last maybe a few days, if not a week. All right, so decent looking setup. Let's see, Cad Jpy. I didn't have anything set up here previously, but maybe what can we see now? Like everything is still going up. We had, whoops, pardon me with that. We had a rejection off the white EMA here. Here we just kind of broke through and consolidated a little bit before rising. And let's take a look right now. We take a fib going from this high to this low. And what are we seeing? Kind of a rejection before the 786, but really strong bounce off that 328. So what that is kind of telling me is that this is the potential. Watch, if we go from this area to this area, where do we have the rejection? Right at the 618 EMA. So that's the perfect movement, right? The other way it kind of rejected a little bit higher. So now, I mean, this is our newest low. That's our newest high. We came down to the 50%, started going up. So I would say right now, all the EMAs on the 4 hour kind of converged and shifted upwards. This is probably going to be a fantastic entry kind of as market opens, right? I don't really see it pulling back anywhere, and EMAs have already shifted going upward, right? All of them. Like we have on the 1 hour, 1, 2, 3 EMAs pointing up, and the white one slowly curving up from its dip right here, and the larger ones, the 610 and the 987, still pointing upwards. So I think as far as jumping in on an entry, this would probably be a solid choice. As far as stop loss goes, though, I mean, I have to play this one by ear. So far, judging with this imbalance, I would probably just do something like this, right? Let's say if I jump in on entry right away, stop loss would have to be maybe even at the white EMA. I do not see it dipping that low. Yeah, because we're already on a rise, but I mean, it's still 71 pips, right? So it's not something I would jump in unless we get that, you know, that one candle pattern that I love, right? So if I see something like this one form, that's what I'd want to see. Or, you know, if we get the green and red, but, you know, reverse so that we have a big green candle after a red one, that's going to be a very solid move. Look how many times this happened. Red, green and red, green and red, and then green and red. Like, what more did you want to? Oh, and another green and red, right? And after each of those, right, I wouldn't say it dropped like, let's see, what, 1, 1, 2, so 2 out of 4 dropped instantly. Oh, look, here's another one. Right, there's another one. So after all those candle patterns, like the price did drop, 3 out of 5 of them anyway. So I'll just clear my drawing so it's not so messy. And then, yeah, but it wasn't going to be a long-term overall. That was just a pullback, right? We just did the fib and saw the rejection area. So just to kind of reiterate that, we'll go from here to here. And you see the 50% kind of where it's bouncing off of, right? So that is, that's kind of our zone to show that it is going to be going higher. It really has no interest in dropping past that, right? So you see these, like within 4 hours, it's just kind of not going anywhere, and then it goes up. 4 hours does nothing, and then it goes up, right? These areas, so that those I would call supply zones, okay? And it's just kind of getting a little bit more steam before moving upwards. So yeah, I believe that this is going to be climbing, but I'm not going to draw any sort of entry until I see the candle pattern that I want to see, right? So this isn't going to be jumping in on a market structure trade. It's more kind of on the fly with a particular strategy that I employ called, hey, the scholar strategy. All right. And once I see it play out, that's when I'm going to be entering the trade. So there's that. All right, moving on to Chf Jpy. All right. Here, let's see. Man, this would have been even better. Like this long-term trade, I think all the way from May. Still, look at this guy go. Holy. Imagine staying into that. You know, had the pullback. I think that's only the 328. Let's take a look on our fib, right? From the bottom to the top. Look at that. Right in the center of the 328. And then it just blasted upwards. This is insane. If you know, I got out of there much too early, but that's okay, right? Live and learn. Look at this. If by chance this was still in, I'm looking at not only an 18.5 to 1, but a 1,240 pip gain. I mean, where it closed on Friday is right there, so almost 1,200 pip gain in a month and a little bit. So that's a fantastic trade. But like I said before, the trade was done around here when EMA shifted, right? There's no guarantee that this would have kept going up. So still a very good win, right? I mean, I think that's still a 10 to 1. Let's grab it somewhere around there. Yeah, 650, 700 pips. Still great. Where it is right now, though, there's nothing indicating for me where it's going to pull back, except maybe this area. But you know, nothing's a guarantee here, because even on this one, it didn't really switch on a structure. It switched on EMA shift, right? That's kind of what told me to enter that trade. So yeah, nothing to see there. Ethereum, similar to Bitcoin, it's risky. If you can see something that really plays out nicely, then go for it. But it's not something I recommend trading right now, especially on a buy too, right? Like I know there's going to be pullbacks, and right now it's a good possibility that it's going to pull back maybe to this area here to 1,500 and change. Yeah, sure, let's set that as a target. If it hits that area here, I'll be looking to grab some sells. All right, Euro AUD, super messy, not really interested in taking any trades here. I'll get that off. I believe there was a setup that I did somewhere around here, but it just kept going up and down, so I didn't bother staying in with that trade. This is looking decent. It's just the annoying thing is this consolidation that started happening kind of near the 2/3 of the way up, right? So that, oh, what an annoying thing to see happen. Like at this point in time, I think it's something that might be worth it just to exit, right? Like there's no reason to hold on to a trade this long. Like especially it is making higher highs, but just barely. And we had too many potential EMA shifts for it to be kind of validated to go higher. But at the same time, look at where it's rejecting. Like it's off the white, off the white. You know, I would say if there's a potential to still be in this trade, this, let's see, let's cut that out. Kind of my threshold would be, yeah, maybe 20 pips below where it is right now. If it drops that 20 pips, done. Right? There's no sense in staying in that trade much longer. But right now, it's not too bad. I mean, you know, still overall 187 pips in profit, 40 pips risk, 180. So yeah, we're looking at just a little over a 4-to-1. Not too bad, right? Still a very solid win if that trade was taken. All right, let's see, moving on. And I'll just click that off. Euro CHF, like I said before, potential target is halfway through this imbalance. This is another perfect kind of candle setup that I like, except actually I think it was Aud CHF. Yeah, that's much nicer, right? Because the green is large and engulfing, but this is overall going down. So, well, not going down. I think. Yeah, what was I saying? That imbalance would be the target before dropping lower, right? Now I'm kind of debating why I drew that up. I think it's because I saw it on the 1 hour, correct? Yeah, it was off the 1 hour, and that's where it'll come up. Why would I take a, I'm trying to think why the sell. Overall, AUD, I believe, is going to be the stronger of the two. No. Higher. No, maybe. You know what? Let's take a look at the daily, because I'm not 100%. No, you know what? I think, yeah, we just exited kind of a giant zone of consolidation, I guess, and now we're dropping right to there. You know what? Yeah, I would still stay with the previous setup here. Let's take a look at Euro CHF, because that's what we were just on. Very similar there, but I don't have any clear indication as to what it's going to bounce off of, except for maybe this right there. So let's draw a replay and switch over to the 1 hour time frame. Let's see what is. Oh, that's just a morning star. A bit of a doji actually. Okay, so that's the setup that I see. There's really nothing of interest down here except just the support zone. Yeah, forget it. This isn't a trade I'd want to be looking at. I'm trying to, you know, if you try to force any sort of patterns that aren't there, it's just, you risk too much and it's not worth it, right? So there's really no sign of where to take an entry except for maybe this candle pattern setup. But again, this is something that I would wait for a pullback before dropping lower. So, you know, even with the fib, where we said before, if we, I bet you that 618 is going to be somewhere in the middle of that candle. Yeah, look where the golden zone is, right? Exactly where I kind of thought. So somewhere around there, you know, I'd be looking for an entry. I'll just leave that up. But it's going to take a little while to come back to there. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't, right? I'm not too comfortable right now taking any buys, especially when everything's showing it's going down. Euro GBP, another good setup, but the trouble is it's just too all over the place, right? There's no clear design where it wants to go. It does show that overall in the long term it wants to go up. And actually back in earlier in June, about 2 weeks ago, this would have been a pretty good candle pattern to bounce off of. Yeah, this would have been a pretty decent trade to take. But overall, I mean, we're looking at being in a trade for nearly 2 weeks. And how much would it have been up? 79 pips. Like, there's much better trades to take at that point, right? So, not really worth it. Euro JPY. So nice rejection off the white right here on the 4 hour. Kind of hit my target zone twice. And as you see, with that, you know, look where it hit that target zone, right? I'll just draw a line right across. Twice the exact same spot. When that happens, I mean, it's a potential a third will happen, but I'm going to be looking for a rejection. I'm going to be looking for a move down. I would say, yeah, a move down probably around here. Maybe it'll do something like this, break through that once more, and then drop. Based on what? Honestly, just the two pins. Like, it just pinned off the same spot twice. When I see that sort of thing happen, it tells me that it's a very clear rejection. The difference is that you see the first time it rejected hard, but the second time it rejected and didn't really come up as, or it didn't go down as low. So again, Fibonacci from the lowest point to the highest point that was made there, it didn't even come down to 50%. So yeah, if it doesn't play out the way I planned here, if it does, EMA shift on a 4 hours what I'd be looking for. If it doesn't, then I mean, it's possible it'll go higher, but I just can't see that happening. Not in this currency pair anyway. All right, Euro NZD. Not interested. Euro USD. Not quite what I predicted to happen. It dropped down first, but again, from where it's at right, I still believe that very strong chance to come up here, but maybe not as high. I'll draw it something like that. Maybe a 60 pip stop loss would be reasonable. But again, it's not something I'm going to enter unless it comes back up here and does a shift on a 1 hour at least. Right, and the structure that we're looking for, let's take a look at the 1 hour. Any patterns that appear to me? Nothing really, just a lot of volume zones. Okay, yeah, nothing really stands out as to why it would come up this high, except for a potential 618 retracement. But then again, it already came up this high, and then it didn't. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to invalidate this trade. I do not see that coming up as I saw before. Yeah, otherwise I'm not really interested in taking this currency pair. I do believe it's going to go lower, but it's all a matter of time, right? We could be seeing a lot of consolidation like this still. Gbp AUD, look how interesting this is. Like, they're just disgusting consolidation, and then finally some sort of moves, and now, you know, it's back to this yellow line, but this time it bounced right off and it closed up. So, I mean, very risky trade, but something like this with an extremely tight stop loss, you know, like maybe 15 pips, just for the sake of having it go up to that brown, very possible. Right, and with a tight stop loss like that, I'm not going to be risking a lot. I'd probably take like half or even a quarter of a lot size of what I normally do, just because again, this is just you know, I'm not even 90% sure on this sort of setup. This will be more like, you know, a coin flip once in a while. I don't mind doing a little risk like that, but that's not, you know, we're not gambling here. We want to do some proper analysis. The only reason why I say off that zone is because of the massive consolidation. It returned back to that zone and it didn't close below, just kind of bounced right off. So that is what is giving me the indication of, hey, you know what, there's a good potential here. And as you saw, right, that was the rejection. It kind of made a bit of a fractal. It's starting to come up. Yeah, you know, maybe even 30, but one way or another, right? Like, the only reason I want to make a tight stop loss is so that quarter lot or so, it's going to be a higher risk to reward ratio. So, you know, maybe even looking at a smaller time frame and see what occurs. And right now, as you can see, just one giant candle that was left. on the 15-minute kind of last candle of the week. So yeah, nothing really kind of jumps out at me. That's, again, like I said, it's just going to be based on that rejection right there of the line. There's really nothing else that jumps out at me. GBP Cad. Nope, not interested. GBP Chf. There's better CHF pairs to take. This isn't one of them. All right, so then GBP Jpy. You know, lately I just do not have any interest taking trades on the British pound. Like, this really turns me off. And there's no setup for it either. Like, it's not bouncing off of anything. Like, what does the 1 hour look like there? Junk. Just some volatility. Probably based on news anyway. But where it's at right now, no, I'm not interested in taking this trade. Not that. GBP NZD. Nope. GBP USD. Consolidating right now. I mean, flag pattern if you guys like that sort of thing. But, you know, that's a messy flag pattern anyway. It just kind of had a rejection. So, you know, from here to here. And then where else would we take it? From here to here. So I guess that's almost done. Potential for a move upwards, but I just don't see that happening. Like I said, GBP is not strong right now. USD is much... Well, no, that's not true. GBP interest rates are pretty high, but USD, it's going to start to skyrocket in the next little while. Like, there's a projection that the July rate will be released at 0.75. And then the subsequent rate will be at 0.5. So that is going to be extremely painful. It's really interesting how the people that are supposed to be the geniuses behind economics think that causing more pain with money is going to help lower down inflation. It kind of blows my mind, actually. I think a lot of people would understand that, hey, if you raise interest rates, causing the banks and everybody to kind of spend more money for the exact same product, that doesn't help inflation. That kind of just makes people bleed hard for a little while, right? And here's the funny thing: when it's when the idea is meant to bring down costs in the long term, how many times do you actually see retailers revert back to their old prices? 0 times? Like, when a jug of milk increases from $4 to $5, do you ever see it go back to $4? Right, just a thought. So as this balances out, it just forces everybody to increase their prices. And then when the sting comes off and the currency is back at its appropriate value, it's not going to matter, because the cost of goods is still going to be at its inflated price. Because, hey, we were making money off this product already. What's the point of lowering it? So what happened with the beef industry several years ago, right? When, not even several years ago, I mean within the last 2 years. I'll give you an anecdotal example. I was at Costco buying myself a brisket when I first moved to Alberta, and it was $55 for an entire brisket. I thought that was amazing, right? And now I'm looking at the same brisket now, and it's $110. Like, that's almost double. That is double. 55 to 110. That's double the cost for the exact same product. And you're going to tell me that, you know, going from 2020 to 2022, you know, when we had, like, I get we had COVID, but what would that stop the production of cattle? Like, people weren't eating less, right? All it is the supply has been shortened in order to increase the profit on there. Right? And it's a very smart thing to do, because, hey, I'm gonna make the same money whether I kill 10,000 cows or if I kill 8,000 cows. So if I raise 8,000, that saves my costs by 20%, but I'm still charging a crap load more money, right? So yeah, funny way how it goes. Anyway, going down, let's see, NZD Cad. It's a lot of just fib setups right now. Like there's really nothing jumping out at me showing that, hey, this is a trade that is worth taking. I'm just gonna unhighlight those from green. NZD CHF, like I said, the imbalance all formed here, but you know, which one would you be more preference to take, right? An AUD or a USD pair or an NZD pair, right? Be wise about those choices. This may be pretty good in the short term, but they're too volatile, and they, you know, NZD likes to screw people with these big wicks occasionally, just to snag the stop loss and then keep going in its appropriate direction. Let's see, NZD Jpy. It didn't actually pop above this one though, so that's curious. Whereas we saw Euro Jpy, right? It formed a double top, whereas NZD Jpy did not. So I don't know. Maybe this one is drawn out a little bit better, where that imbalance formed, and we're going to see the 50% climb. So you know what? This could be the better potential JPY pair trade, simply because that imbalance needs to be filled, right? So let's see, drop that all the way to there, 43.5, sure. And going down, I wouldn't say that this is going to go too far. Maybe just to those wicks right there. 3.5 to 1, possibly. I don't even know if that's worthwhile. Right, like I said before, I'm probably trying to force a trade in here rather than analyzing and saying forget it. You know, we have a couple other good setups, and we should just forget about this one. You know, I'm not. I'll mark it up since I already did it. NZD USD. You know, similar story to the other USD pairs. What we saw here, it bounced off the fib. Let's switch to the daily. Right, it made a lower low, so I'll just grab it from there, and there we go. Right, so we had a very strong impulse move, and now rejecting. But as you see, this climb upward was very similar to, oh man, let me switch this to this, right, to this climb upward, even though it was short-lived, from 25th of May to the 29th of May, right? And when did this happen? 13th of May. Well, I guess after that one, it was the 19th of May to about the 2nd of June or the 30th of May. Yeah, so very similar moves, right? When USD lost strength, Nasdaq kind of went up, and now we're getting back into the same issues. But that can be deleted. Oh shoot, no it's not, my bad. Oh balls. Okay, that is here because that still imbalance needs to be filled. Look at that though. We fill imbalances and then we made new ones. So yeah. Well, my target still stands. I'll show that on the other video. Alright, USD CAD. Done deal. The trade is finished. Great. Man, what a move that was. That was fantastic. And it finished playing off last week already. You know, great entry if that snipe was done. See, like I said, if you see the candle pattern, this is so much nicer to jump in on. 50%. Didn't even need to take a stop loss that deep, but it was. And one way or another, it's still almost a 10 to 1 trade. So, fantastic. I would say that was probably the trade of June, right? Just a smooth move all the way up, done. Right, what an easy snag. USD CHF. Look at that. What did I draw up? What did I say? Come on. Look at where it hit. Right in the top of that box I drew. Crazy. Right? Like I said, that was just the fib retracement area. And Yeah, I thought it would have. For whatever reason, I had a feeling this wasn't it. So yeah, I'm just gonna wait until we have an EMA shift on the 1 hour at least before I jump in on any trades. Yeah, I wouldn't even consider that an EMA shift. That's messy. Maybe once they shift over the pink, right? So on the 4 hour, if the yellow and red cross, that would be kind of solidifying my trade idea. USD JPY, like all the rest of the JPY pairs except maybe the euro. This didn't form a double top though, formed a higher peak. So yeah, very, very good chance that we're just going to see this climb up as well. Silver, interesting. So we didn't make a new low, came right off that Fibonacci channel line, and up it goes. Very interesting. It's been hovering around this area for 2 months now, a little over 2 months. Formed a double bottom. Let's see on the daily what this looks like. Yeah, it's got a good potential to actually start climbing. The 987 is still a little bit bullish. I mean, it's starting to go sideways. 618 is definitely dropping. Interesting. XAU USD. No, that didn't work out like I planned, so I'll get rid of that. I don't really like trading gold anyway. I just did it for the sake of a colleague of mine wanted to see what that would look like drawn up, but it's just super messy right now. There's no interesting trades to take. Right? If it drops, I see it coming back down to that aqua like we had so many times before, and then potential run up. Oil was interesting, actually. Let's see here. So oil, I did take a trade. And the reason I did that is because, well, let's fix the Fibonacci first. Just because it actually hit my Fibonacci line right there. So I took a look at it on the 1 hour first. Okay, and let me just show you what I saw. Let me just lock that so I don't move it around. Okay, this is what I saw. A very hard drop, and then kind of move upward, and then another drop, but it didn't make a lower low. So I actually took a trade right at the end of this candle. Not at the end of it. Yeah, at the end of this candle. Okay, so this was my trade idea. And where did I take it? Just the bottom of where that wick was, right? I had about 1,000 on there, and let's see, where did I shut it down? Yeah, about there. I think I took a profit, 2 profits, like once there and once a little bit higher. So on average, I bet I did almost a 3-to-1 trade on this. Not too bad. The only reason I risked that trade was because I just can't see it making a lower low. Like it dropped below my expected point. Like you see right here at June 17th, it kind of went in that area and started rejecting, and then it dropped lower. So if I take a look on the daily, okay, I do see that we had the rejection here and the drop, but I just can't see it going much lower than that, right? So if I take even this line and draw it, you see where it's kind of rejecting off of, like we're on that diagonal climb. Okay. So yeah, it's still a very good possibility that it's going to go higher. It's just, again, before I predicted this is going to be the rejection zone dropping. But now I think it's going to be climbing back up. Will it hit that $1.26? Summer is going to be in full swing. AC's running like crazy. In the US, yeah, I do believe we're going to be seeing much higher oil prices coming into middle of the summer. You know, one great reason behind that is, I mean, how big is California? Population was like 70 million in the entire state, or 35. Someone correct me with the number. I'm not entirely certain. I know I could Google it, but you know what? Let's say 40 million. I don't know. One way or another, it is the most populous state in the union, right? So imagine now when California has to give an advisory that there's just not enough energy to run air conditioning and to charge electric vehicles, so there could be rolling blackouts through the state in the course of the summertime. So keep that in mind, folks. And as that's going to happen, oil is going to skyrocket because, hey, Biden's got to get it from somewhere. And I think there's going to be quite a large mutiny if people have to pay $14 a gallon. I think that might be a little bit nuts. Right now, I think in California it's already up to $8 a gallon. So 14, I mean, as crazy it sounds, doesn't seem like much of a stretch. All right. And that's kind of where we're at. I would say, you know, just jump on Nasdaq quickly. And oh my gosh, how beautiful is this? I placed this circle when we finally hit that line end of last week. I did expect to bounce off the black, but it just kind of broke. You know, if we take a look at the weekly, that's well, there is no black line there, unfortunately. But if there was, it'd be bouncing right off it. No, the white line is the thing closest to it. Anyway, so that is what I was expecting. You know, I was hoping that this would have been it, but no, we didn't quite get there. Dropped a little bit lower, hit that black line. And like I said, historically, it doesn't get crossed that often, right? So we can take a look back. Boom. COVID, it just kind of touched it and came back out. The last time was recession time. Back in 2008, right? So you can see it actually dipped below there and finally crawled out of there a year later. So if we do go significantly below the black line, there is a chance that recovery will take a year. All right, so that's it for the Forex, folks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.